Good morning and welcome to Shift. We're privileged today to have Boyd Huppert here. Boyd is a news reporter from KARE 11, and Boyd is the master storyteller, and not just here, but across our country, and he also does teaching in Europe. So he's really a treasure, and I'm so glad that we have him here.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Boyd is also a cancer survivor and has a faith component. He's of the Catholic faith. So we're just so happy to share a little bit more about him. And Boyd, where did you grow up?
I grew up in River Falls, Wisconsin. And I've been to a lot of Lutheran churches, though. My wife grew up Lutheran. So we just attended the Ludicrous dinner at her home church in western Wisconsin before Christmas. Something I do for her every year.
Yeah. Well, you grew up on a dairy farm, and we shared that farm growing up in connection with each other, and it's a pretty special place to grow up.
It is, yeah. I think, you don't appreciate it when you're growing up on a dairy farm. You just know it's a lot of work. But then as you move on through your life, you realize, wow, I have a work ethic that I probably owe to growing up on that farm. And the fact that I'm a pretty content person, and I don't complain about I got off the dairy farm in part because I didn't like the fact that we couldn't ever go on vacation, and if we were at a wedding and on a Saturday and dinner was at 4 at the wedding, and we were packing up the car at 3:30 to leave because we had to get home to milk cows. But then I chose a career that's pretty much the same. Or, back to working holidays and long hours. Next Super Bowl Sunday's next Sunday, and I'm leaving at 4 a.m. to drive to the White Earth Indian Reservation to do a story, so won't be back until the Super Bowl's over. So I'm still doing dairy farmer hours.
You can't help yourself.
No.
Well, you actually started out in radio.
I did, yeah. I started out there's a little radio station in River Falls called WEVR, and I was 16 years old, and my high school English teacher approached me after class one day. He did play-by-play for the football and basketball, high school basketball games, and he said the owner of the radio station was looking for a high school student who could come in on Sunday afternoons and push a button during Green Bay Packer and Milwaukee Brewer games. When they say, we pause now for station identification, somebody has to push that button. So that was me. I think he told me at the time a monkey could do it, and I was the perfect guy for the job. So that's how I got into broadcast. And then I started getting more responsibilities at that radio station. And then there's also a campus radio station at UW River Falls. So I decided just to stay home and go to college there. I majored in journalism. And I planned to be a radio guy, but while I was in college, I interned at Channel 5, KSDP. And the moment I walked in that door, into that newsroom, it was like,
It's like crack.
Well, it was. No, I liken it to like going to the circus. There was, fire-breathing women and plate spinners, and that's what it felt like compared to radio, which is, as you know, is a much more solitary pursuit. You're
right
in a studio by yourself. And
very personal.
Yeah, very personal. And television is much more collaborative. And
yeah,
it was just so exciting to be in that newsroom for the summer. So then I totally changed my focus. I wanted to do television after that.
Yeah. So where did you begin your career?
My television career started in Wausau, Wisconsin. I had an internship there the summer after I did the KSDP internship. Then I had an internship in Wausau.
Interns make a lot of money, by the way, so you can see where Boyd is going here.
Yeah. And at KSDP, I didn't do anything on air. I was helped carry equipment around and whatever they needed. Worked if they needed help on the assignment desk one day, I did that. But then I showed up expecting the same thing when I got to Wausau for my internship. And my first day there, they gave me a photographer and an assignment. The first story, which tells you a little bit about Wausau, but the first story I ever did was they were painting the flagpole in front of City Hall. And this is a true story, and I came back with a 2-minute story on the flagpole being painted in front of City Hall.
Fascinating. Well, I bet sometimes you have to make a casserole out of one ingredient. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Was there for 2 years, and Sherry and I moved to. Sherry and I got married we met in high school. She was at Prescott, and I was at River Falls. We met at the county fair in the sheep barn. And she went to Winona State. I went to UW River Falls. We got married right out of college, moved to Wausau, 2 years there, then 3 years in Omaha at a TV station there, and then Milwaukee for 7 years. Both our kids were born there, which is how they became Green Bay Packer fans. And then we cursed them by bringing them to Minnesota a few years later, so they had to put up with the ribbing that they got for all those years. And we arrived at CARE in 1996. I started working at CARE.
So you've been there a long time.
28 years.
And television has changed a lot.
It has. This will be 40 years for me in TV news.
Wow.
It has changed a lot. I mean, think when and when you were in it too. I was typing on a manual typewriter, my first 2 jobs, and I just think about things like cell phones. When we were out covering stories, we would stop at gas stations to use payphones because we didn't have cell phones. And typing up. Do you remember the carbon paper script sets?
Oh yes.
So there were 5 sheets of paper with carbon paper in between. That's how we typed up our scripts. And there aren't a lot of us in newsrooms anymore who remember that, but
No,
I do.
When I was doing the weather, I would take it was the coffee, the plastic coffee that you actually insert into the plastic cup. And so I would turn it over, draw a circle around it, and put an H for high. And so I was drawing the weather map, and
right.
No, that doesn't happen. And getting all the cities wrong, and it was great.
Yeah, and you remember the teleprompter you'd take one of those scripts that was in the carbon paper set, and you would lay it down on the conveyor belt behind the set that would run under a camera, and that's how you did the teleprompter. And so I anchored on the weekends in Wausau, and when the commercial came on, quick undid the microphone and then ran back and put your scripts on the conveyor belt for the next segment. And every once in a while, one would get hung up as it was going through, so you always had to have your paper down below.
You saw a lot of fun live TV, right? Yeah. Well, how many of you have seen one of Boyd's stories? Yeah, I suspected that you would. That's why you're here. And we love your stories.
Thank you.
And it's, Boyd's really a craftsman when it comes to this sort of narrative storytelling and letting the subject tell the story. So I have a piece that Boyd sent, and we'll see if I can get it to play. Or Charles, do you want to just play it?
At various times in our lives,
good girl.
many of us find ourselves searching,
That's a good girl.
sometimes intently.
When I found out that I had cancer, they told my family to go ahead and start planning my funeral.
Diagnosed with stage 4 head and neck cancer 3 years ago,
Walk nice.
then let go from his propane delivery job.
It's almost like it's a nightmare that you can't wake up out of.
Greg Thomas began passing the hours on long walks from his home,
Oh, look at the sun's coming up, Mags.
alone with his dog and his thoughts,
That sky looks beautiful, huh?
on a gravel road that led him here.
And this is where I would come.
Though Greg would have loved to go inside, the doors on the old Catholic church were locked tight.
I tried it more than once.
Built in 1868 by Czech settlers who later moved to a bigger parish in Montgomery, the church had not been home to a congregation in more than a century.
Really rough shape.
The foundation was crumbling, the paint peeling, but it was here Greg Thomas, crumbling himself, came to pray. Till one day,
Did you say your prayers this morning?
the stranger on the steps
Yep.
walked next door.
He went to the neighbor and said he'd like to paint the church. Who does he talk to? So the neighbor sent him to talk to me.
As treasurer of the foundation that keeps up the church cemetery, John Rinda could barely believe it. Before Greg started work nearly 3 years back, Don had feared the church's days were numbered.
It was a godsend, yes. No doubt about that.
140 years worth of paint, 15 layers thick in places, came peeling off as Greg worked through the lingering effects of the cancer treatments that robbed him of his energy, his saliva glands, and even his teeth.
I've been on a feeding tube now for 3 years, and this is how I feed myself, with a tube and a syringe.
And this is how Greg feeds himself, too.
That was the first thing I wanted to try when I walked in here, is to see if the bells still work.
Once inside, Greg found intact an 1860s interior,
It was overwhelming. We desperately need a roof.
a dust-covered museum
The floor was all rotted out.
in need of his care.
It's going to be beautiful. It really is.
Greg has no family ties to the church, but to those who do,
Grandpa,
Greg has been a blessing, heaven sent.
one of the beads on my rosary is reserved for him.
If you, like Blanche Zelmer, believe in the power of prayer, this next part will come as no shock.
You can't help but not think otherwise.
The old church is newly clothed in white,
It's what he's done for me.
and Greg's cancer is now in remission.
This is my way of saying thank you.
Greg can pray inside now whenever he wants, but there's something about this concrete
Yeah.
pew.
There's been a lot of tears shed on these steps. And they've been tears of joy, tears of pain. But tears of blessing, too.
Greg Thomas is restoring the old church. That's true. But it's hard to discern who's saving who.
And that's the heart of it.
Boyd Huppert, KARE 11 News, Le Sueur County.
It's perfect for us. What a beautiful story. How did you get in there so early to get all those beautiful pictures when he's restoring?
I received a note. Most of my stories come from a tip from someone. So somebody sent me a note about, there's the guys fixing up this old church that's been unoccupied for decades. And I don't know if they mention in the email. Usually you get a little bit of information in
Yeah.
an email, and then you try to flush it out and call.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they mentioned that he had cancer or not, but when I got in touch with him, we talked on the phone a little bit. And I realized there was a deeper story than just somebody fixing up a church there.
Right.
After speaking with Greg. So yeah, we spent a full day with him.
Yeah.
From morning till evening.
Wow.
Had lunch. I'll never forget. We had lunch. He said, "Let's go down to this bar nearby," and he couldn't eat. He had the feeding tube in a little plastic bag that he had his food in, and we sat there and had lunch with him.
Wow. How do you get people to open up, do you think?
I grew up in a family of extended family. I had 13 uncles and aunts on my dad's side of the family, and they were all great talkers. And I grew up listening to their stories, And I think that's a skill in itself, is being a good listener. And sharing a bit of yourself along the way, too. So I've gotten better at it. I think it's something that I've always said, that if you do this job long enough, you become kind of a student of human behavior. And there are different techniques that I'll use, but I think the biggest one is just being a good listener.
Yeah.
And being interested in people's stories, and knowing that there's often something more there beneath the surface, and if you're willing to invest the time to keep asking questions, and just seeing where certain roads lead, there's always everybody's motivated by something, and I think it comes down to finding what that thing is. For some people, it's their faith. For most people, it's their family. Some people have a hobby that they're passionate about, but if you can find that thing that drives people, there's usually a rich story there.
Yeah. What do you think drove the guy in the church?
Greg, his faith, definitely. You know, I haven't watched that story for a long time, and I see it through different eyes now. You know, having been through,
Yeah.
not through, I'm still in a cancer fight myself, and watching it now through those eyes, I understand his motivation better, because as he was going through it, it's just there are so many things like, I want to get done while I'm feeling good, and I wanted to get back to work after my medical leave. I couldn't wait to get back to work because I've got more to do. And he would be down at that church every day. He wanted to get it finished, you know, but while he could still do it. And you know, as it turned out, he reached remission. Unfortunately, the cancer came back 3 or 4 years later, and ultimately he succumbed to the cancer. But he got a few more years, and he did really good things with those years. He got he went to school and became a minister in that time period too. So he graduated with his degree. He never got an opportunity to have a church or anything because the cancer was coming back. But he did a lot of things with that time.
What do you hope to do? What do you want to get done?
There's so many more stories to tell. You know, I've worked a whole career to get to where I am now. For most of my career, I was covering fires and, you know, murders and city council meetings.
Yeah, Boyd, go here. Boyd, do the light pole being painted.
And the light pole being painted.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one I wouldn't mind doing again, as things turned out. But yeah, so I got to this point where I have this segment now that I can, you know, I don't want to make it sound more important than it is, but it is.
It's pretty important.
I think of it as a mission or a ministry almost to me, because there's so much division in our country right now. And I think I have an opportunity to bring people together with these stories, and share our humanity with each other. And yeah, and I don't take that for granted, because there aren't many reporters in the country that have the platform that I have to tell a 3 or 4 minute story every Monday night like I do. And so I want to do more of those. And yeah, you know, somebody will let me know when we've had too much good news. And then I can retire, but until somebody does, I just crave the opportunity. Like last Monday, I shot a story with a husband and wife who are refereeing basketball together. He was doing it first, and she decided to join him so they could, because he was out on the road refereeing all these nights in the wintertime, and she was home by herself, so she got trained, and now she's reffing with him. But that's a story about a couple. They just celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary, like I will in June. You know, that's a story about. It's a love story.
Yeah, it really is.
It's not a referee story. It's a story about a couple that is deeply in love after 40 years, and that's the antidote to, the high divorce rate in our country. So if I can
Right,
shine some
right.
positive light on
Yeah.
a good marriage, that's an opportunity to do that. Next Sunday, I'm driving up to the White Earth Indian Reservation. There's he's either 11 or 12, but a piano prodigy. A year ago, Christmas, his little sister got a toy piano, a keyboard, little battery-operated keyboard for Christmas, and he taught himself to play on that little toy piano, watching YouTube videos. And he was at a football tournament. He didn't have a piano. He was just playing that little one, and sat down in the lobby of the hotel where they were staying. And there was a man there who heard him play, who was just blown away by how good he was, and said, and he told him his story. He had this little keyboard, and this guy said, "You need a piano, like a big piano with all the keys."
Yeah.
So he put a video of him playing on Facebook and asked if people would like to help him raise money, and they raised the money to buy him a piano. So now he has a piano, and the reason we're doing this on Super Bowl Sunday is he's playing his first little concert at a senior home next Sunday. It'll be like his first audience.
Yeah.
So we're going up to shoot that. We'll go to his house and tell the story of
Right.
the toy piano, but then in the afternoon he's playing at the senior home, so we'll go there. So, if that's a story. There aren't a lot of things that I would make me give up Super Bowl Sunday to drive 4 hours up to the
Yeah.
White Earth Indian Reservation, but that story
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
I was sad when the Packers lost in the playoffs, but part of me was happy when the Packers lost, because it was like, now how am I going to decide
Yeah.
then? It's like, I'm going to have to miss the Packers in the Super Bowl to go do the story that I really want to do. And now I can go without having to feel bad about missing the Packers in the Super Bowl.
Boyd has won countless awards nationally, and so one of the things he does is he also teaches how to do the craft of storytelling. And tell us about that a little bit.
So I work at CARE 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but on Thursday and Friday, CARE is owned by a company called Tegna, and we have 60 television stations, 49 of them with newsrooms. So I travel to our stations and do training younger reporters how to just storytelling techniques. And so I was in Columbus, Ohio on Thursday and Friday, and next week I'm going to Charlotte. We have a station there. I like the southern ones in the wintertime.
Yep.
We
Good choice.
Yeah, we've got a couple of locations Jacksonville, Florida. I was hoping hopefully that one shows up soon on my list. Tampa, we have one there. I was in Houston before Christmas. That was
Yep.
nice. Phoenix.
Is there a common mistake you see reporters doing before you sort of
Yeah.
teach them?
Too much of this. Too many reporter words and not enough, Greg Thomas words.
Yep.
Yeah, I teach things like introducing the subject of your story in a meaningful way. And so it's like this: when we meet hi, I'm Boyd, right? And you would say,
Hi, I'm Jerry.
hi, Jerry, and we have a moment together
Yeah.
and look each other in the
Yeah.
eyes and smile at each other. And so those are the kinds of things that I teach too, like allow your viewers to meet the person in your story in the same way, something meaningful, and not a picture of them just sitting typing up, a boring shot of them typing at a laptop or something,
Yep.
or walking away from the camera when you introduce them, because that doesn't allow people to make a connection with them. But to find some shot that will make me feel close to that person the first time that I see them on the screen. Those are the sorts of things that I teach, making sure your story has layers and reveals and surprises, so that you don't load the top of the story with all the information, and then there's nowhere to go from there in the next 2 minutes of the story.
Yep.
So that's the sort of thing that I teach. That if you're, it's sort of the same things that make a good movie. You know, it's
Yep.
reveals and surprises and characters in a movie that you want to spend time with, and so those are the things that I teach.
And a golden nugget.
And a golden nugget, yeah, that's the surprise. So lots of, I call them gold coins along the way. So when you're with Greg, on the little journey with Greg, you don't learn everything at the beginning of the story. You learn that he has cancer, and then you learn about the church that he fixed up, and then when he got emotional near the end of during the shoot, you know, when he's sitting on the step and there's that long pause as he's collecting his thoughts, well, that doesn't go at the beginning of the story, that goes near the end of the story, because it's never going to get better than that. You know, and after that happens, then it's time to wrap up the story. So.
And letting the pauses be. We often talk through pauses, right?
Yeah.
Because we get uncomfortable and, you know, just letting those pauses be. Well, I read in one of the things about you was that you don't love being on camera.
Yeah. That's true.
Well, you don't find that very often with reporters. They love to be on camera, right? They like that
That's true.
time.
Also true.
Yep. So how did you get more used to that?
I don't know. I'm still, when I was doing daily news, when I started teaching 2 years ago, you stopped seeing me by the side of the freeway in winter weather.
Yep.
So I was working on my segment 3 days a week, and then on Mondays and Fridays I was out in the field, what we call working on the desk, so doing daily news and back doing fires and things like that. When I started teaching for our company 2 years ago, I'm not out by the side of the freeway anymore now. But even when I was doing live shots, that was an anxious thing for me. I've still got really nervous before that camera comes on. Because, so I don't miss that as much, and I put myself in my story sparingly.
I saw that. We didn't see his face at all during that story, did we? Yeah, the story, the focus was on Greg.
It's Greg's story. It's great. It's Greg's
Yeah.
story, and I
Yeah, it is a
always
Greg
feel like
story.
he should be the center of it.
I'm out here because I want to see if you have any questions.
Hi, I'm Terry.
Terry.
About 10 years ago, my father gave me a cowbell,
Okay.
and that belonged to his father. And just the fact that he had an object created a moment for me to get a history lesson about my grandfather.
Yeah.
So I found out that in the 1920s, my grandfather was 13 years old, and up to 20, he worked in Adams County, Wisconsin, and he had this cowbell on his one piece of cattle that he used for plowing fields and digging foundations for people in Wisconsin. So have you carried with you an object or two from your dairy farm days that help you tell a story?
Oh, yeah. On my desk at CARE, there are two pictures. One is of my grandpa on his W.D. Ellis Chalmers plowing a field, and the other one is my dad unloading a gravity box filled with corn. He's dirty because he's been out harvesting all day, and he had a seed corn cap on. It was Jake's seed. You can't read the Jake's on it because it's all dirty. But he turns around toward the camera, and he's got the biggest smile on his face. Like there was nowhere in the world that he would rather be at that moment than working on that farm. And I think that's what I got from my dad. My dad passed away 6 years ago. He's the one who taught me that if you choose your career wisely, there's no distinction between work and happiness. They just go together. He loved that farm, and I never heard him complain about the hours. You know, we never took vacations. He worked 7 days a week. He got up at 4:30 every morning, 7 days a week. Sunday was the only day that he took a break after morning milking and chores. We went to church, went to my grandmother's house for lunch, and then we would come back home and he'd put his overalls back on and we was back out in the dairy barn. And that was the one break every week. And, but I never, ever heard him complain once, because he wouldn't walk to the barn. He would run to the barn. Like, he couldn't wait to get there. That's how much he loved working on that farm. So those are the two pictures I have up on my desk, and they just remind me of where I came from and how lucky I am to also have a job that I love as much as my dad loved his.
Hi, Boyd.
Hi.
My name is Diane.
Hi, Diane.
One of my absolute favorite stories that you did that was about the little dog named Nala,
Yeah.
who went and visited people. Was it a nursing home or
It
a
was.
senior center?
Lynn Bloomston in St. Paul.
Okay. Do you ever do follow-up with any of the people that you did stories on? Because I was just wondering, do you know if Nala is still with us and if her employer is still, or her
Yeah.
owner is still employed there?
I believe Nala is. Unfortunately, do you remember gosh, I'm trying to remember his name now. Nala's human was also worked at the nursing home. And then she would come to work with him every day. He passed away suddenly 3 or 4 years ago. Heart attack, I believe. And so, and it was a young man, well, everyone's younger than me now, but but he was in his maybe late 40s. So Nala is still alive as far as I know, with his wife. Yeah, and we do follow-ups. When I take a vacation and I can't get a story turn for that week, we rerun a piece, and I always try to update the story at the end, so we'll rerun it and then do a little update at the end. And those do really well for us. People, I think, are interested, as you are in Nala's story. When I was shooting the story this past Monday with the referees, the husband and wife, I walked into the gym and it was like, wait a minute, I had this sense of deja vu, like I've been in this gym before. And then I remembered I'd done a story 10 years ago in Swanville, Minnesota, on a boy who had been a percussionist coming up in band, but he had a disease that was robbing him of his ability to even hold drumsticks anymore, so he was going to have to quit the band because he didn't have the strength in his hands anymore. And his band teacher came up with a music program, some software that allowed him to play the drum with his fingers on an iPad. So if they'd set up a speaker, and then he would play the drum, and she even made it mobile so he could still march with the marching band, wheelchair with speakers on it, and then he would do this. So that was 10 years ago, and when I walked into that gym, I'm like, now I remember it was that story when we shot the high school basketball game, and he was playing on his iPad. So I asked around, does anybody know what became of Ethan Ock? That was his name. And someone said, well, his aunt is right over there if you want to go talk to her. So I talked with her. And he graduated from the University of Minnesota with an engineering degree, and he's working for Northrop Grumman now. And so that'll be the next time I'm on vacation and can't get a story turn, I'm going to run that story. And with that update, I'll get some pictures from Ethan's family and of what he's doing. So it's nice. I really enjoy catching up with people, and I think viewers do too. And if you're seeing it for the first time, then it's just a good story.
Yeah, no, you don't have to.
From the beginning of a story that's given to you, how long does it take before it actually is produced and shown? How do you get your creative juices going? Because you always have a thread that ties stories together on different levels.
Yeah. So are you asking about the kind of the process of getting it? Yeah. So like the referee story, for instance, we shot that Monday. I was already in the midst of writing a story that we'd shot the previous week about a World War II veteran who just got flown out to Hollywood. If you heard Masters of the Air, it's a new series that is just being released on Apple TV, and it depicts the 100th Bomb Group, which was known as the Bloody 100th during World War II because of their high casualty rates. And there's a Minnesotan who, one of the few survivors of the 100th Bomb Group, who's still living, and he got flown out to Hollywood for the premiere. So unfortunately, I didn't get to take that trip with him, but he had some great pictures that he showed us. Oh, this is me with Steven Spielberg, and here I'm with Tom Hanks. And so we shot that one the week before. So I ran out, we did the referees at their game, and then I spent Tuesday and Wednesday with putting together writing, and then we started editing the World War II story. I haven't seen the finished product yet. I think my photographer that's airing on Monday, tomorrow. It's still not finished. So Devin Krinky, my photographer, told me he was going to go in today and work on it, and then tomorrow, when I get into the office tomorrow morning, we'll see what he has done. Hopefully it'll be near finished, but he'll finish it up tomorrow night, and I'll be working on the referee story then. I'll write that tomorrow, and then he'll start editing that Tuesday, Wednesday, and then that'll air the following Monday. So usually it's about 3 days that we'll spend on a story, a day shooting and a day writing and editing. It's kind of our turn, which is, it's an obscene amount of time compared to what other television reporters get to put their stories together. Most of what you see on the air was put together the same day. So I'm really fortunate to have that extra time to devote to stories. I'm very grateful to Care 11 for giving me all that time. You know, if they had me on the desk doing daily news, they could get 3 stories out of me a week. If I wasn't teaching, they could get 5 stories out of me a week. But they're content with the one, and so I guess ultimately I'm grateful to the people watching too, because if people weren't watching, then I wouldn't have that gig very long. My pieces are currently running on Monday nights at 10 o'clock, so that story about the World War II veteran will run this Monday at 10, and the referees will run the following Monday at 10 o'clock. And the piano player, the 12-year-old piano player, that'll run the Monday after that at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing a good job, though. I'm teasing all my stories.
He is. He's doing a really good job.
Some good marketing going on.
Yes,
here.
there is. Count this as a day. I am so thankful that you have done this. I've been bugging Boyd for a while, and
Almost a year, I think.
oh yeah, yep. And
I ran out of excuses. Well, at first I was kind of in the bubble. I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah,
I was supposed to
you
stay
were
away
in the
from
bubble.
people. I had my bone marrow transplant. It'll be 2 years in April. April
Yeah.
15th will be
Wow.
2 years from and then I really had to be careful for the
Yeah,
year
you
after
did.
that. So I just started traveling for a little over a year ago, where I could start traveling for work.
Yeah. Well, we are thankful, and you have been a joy. This has really been something. So thank you, and you are in our prayers.
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.